4 rounds down with 3 to go in the GT Sprint Challenge here on RCI TV, and 3 drivers still really in it for the championship. And today, round 5 could be a pivotal round in determining a champion in a couple of weeks. Hello, everybody, and welcome to RCI TV, the continuing coverage of our Friday championship, now well into the season. We love to see you out here supporting your drivers as always. But first, before all of that, I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Ryan Mawson in the booth today, with Ryan Rai Gill behind the cameras. The Ryan and Ryan Show with me in tow. How lucky am I? And Ryan Mawson, welcome back to the Friday Champ. It's been a little while, and you join us at a very interesting racetrack in Zolder.
Oh yeah, it's been a little while, but been keeping my eye on the series. It's always just, so interesting to see what happened. Considering we've had basically 3 different winners in 4 rounds. First 2 were won by, I believe it was Boothby. Then it was this man here, Savalainen, in the 100. And then Tinko took the win last week. But Zolder, a track that completely turns people upside down sometimes. It does give for some great racing, but it's really a test of your car and setups. That middle chicane, the death chicane, as I know a couple of drivers will dub it, it is scary to come up with as a driver. Great as a commentator, though, because we get to see some airtime from some of these, huge, massive GT3 cars going through there. But I'm definitely looking forward to this race. Looking through even free practice, what is it down? We have to go all the way to 17th to drop out of that 1 second barrier, and only just.
Yeah, it's always a close road around here. It's not the longest track, but it's also not the fastest track. But what it does do is it provides some excellent racing and very close times. And if yesterday, the Thursday GT4 supporting series that largely follows the GT Sprint Challenge around is anything to go on, it is going to be a rough, drama-filled race today. Of course, this is the pro split, the highest split that there is. Ryan Mawson, you have a lot of experience driving around here. Be honest with me. Did you like this track or not?
It's one of those tracks where if I enjoy the good lap, if that makes sense. I enjoy it when you get everything hooked up. There's like that first chicane, this sort of set of chicanes that we've just seen Joe McCauley go through. If you get the car perfectly balanced and hooked up, it is really nice. But more often than not, I'm on a poor lap, or I will do something a little bit stupid and end up skittling myself off onto the gravel. In that respect, it's not a circuit that I would jump up and say, yeah, let's go racing at, but at the same time, I don't absolutely detest it. There are tracks that I hate more, I'll say that.
Well, I don't think you're alone, Ryan, in that. I really feel like that is most people's take. I talked to a bunch of the drivers in the paddock before the race today, and they all pretty much had the same thing to say. Nobody was too jazzed about getting on the racetrack tonight. Nobody had the confidence that you would normally see if we were going to a place like Imola or Nürburgring, for instance. Every time we seem to come here, everybody is slightly apprehensive. At this point, I just think it's something about this track. It is very technical in the way you have to drive it. And oh, by the way, drive-through penalties, a big problem here for cutting the track. It is going to be a day where, well, luckily we've got Ryan Gill behind the cameras, because we're going to need some very fast fingers indeed.
Fast reaction times, definitely. And yeah, track limits are high, especially that second chicane. A lot of drivers want to take quite a lot of liberties there, and you can very easily find yourself, completely coming undone. I think even in the GT4 championship that was yesterday, people were not akin to track limits. And that's in a slower car that is, you've got a lot more time to react to what's happening in front of you. So GT3 cars, incredibly close field, pro drivers. It would not surprise me if we see it.
Well, of course, practice coming to an end, qualifying starting here. It's going to be a mad rush. I mentioned a moment ago that it's not the largest track in the ACC repertoire, but it will be clogged with race cars. Keep in mind now, they cannot stop or slow down in Sector 3 to gain space. They have to do that somewhere else on the race course. That new rule put in by the stewards this season simply to keep people from running into the back of others on quick laps and to stop it from being a mess. We have seen several ingenious drivers slow down in Sector 1 and 2, which is completely legal, mind you, and it's worked to absolute great effect. No incidents to report.
Ooh, and here we go for qualifying as Savalainen. One of always seems to be the first. He wants to get out there, and have that clean air. I think this is a driver, he really loves it, but he wants to run away from anyone behind him. He doesn't want to give any kind of the slipstream. Not that you can really gain much slipstream around here, lads, but a dark and fairly cold, I would say, 21-21. But looking at it, that's a fast track. That's going to make qualifying that a little bit more interesting, as the track will get better and better as they go along. And with that quick fire qualifying that we've got, it's not, as you said, Jesse, it's not the longest track in the world, but you can't afford to dawdle much on these quick fire, in the quick fire qualies. You've got to get the tires up to pressures and temperatures. By then, you've already wasted 3 minutes.
Yeah, you can't really, you may get one reset in the middle of this session. That's going to be just about it. There were some people worried about weather moving in. It is mostly cloudy at 6 a.m. And as you said, the track just fast, which is another reason if you are going to set a banker lap and reset to pit lane really quickly, you're going to have to do it fast, because I have a feeling by the end of the session, the track's going to be optimum, which will usually mean that you will be capable of setting quicker laps even more. So everyone is in a rush. Everybody has left the pit lane, and there is quite a bit of room out there today, which is not something we could have said yesterday. We had 33, 34 cars out there, not quite the case here. I believe we've got 20, well, we still have 20 plus, but it is nowhere near the 33, 34 that we had a day ago. Just one class of driver out here today, and that is the high pro field, if you would like to call it that. Savalainen will likely give us the first representation of what a quick lap looks like here, and I'm not sure what they're running in the post 1.8 world around here. I guess we're about to find out.
Yeah, the post 1.8 world is a strange one, because sometimes lap times are still fairly close to what they used to be for high pros, and other tracks seem to be really off it. But coming up to the line, Savalainen will be, and it shall be a 127.8. I'd say 126, like 125s used to be pre 1.8, but I think, with a only fast track, that's only going to get faster. But the Merc's going to give us a good representation. The Mercedes can just take so much curb around here. It's almost unfair if you're a mid-engine driver. You just can't touch some of the curbs, but the front engines just launch over them with, absolute no care in the world. And then the other half of it, I remember seeing the 16 of Max. That Porsche, it can really come alive in the last sector, so I won't discount that car out either.
All very good points. Letao second place now. Caracas down to third. Boothby comes in with the first lap, putting him in fourth. Zampiri now rounding out the top five, just getting bumped out by Max Payne in the 966. That old GTR always seems to perform well around here. Can't quite put my finger on why that might be, but it does seem to do really well. Already up inside the top five. Letao pitting out of second place near the halfway point, as predicted, going ahead and making an adjustment, probably just changing the tires, to be fair, and getting back out there. And I'm curious now, we've been about 5 minutes on fast. I keep waiting for the track to turn over to optimum, and now I wonder maybe how long that will take. I expected it to be relatively quick. I was incorrect in that respect, and while I'm jabbering on, Tico Vandervelde goes ahead and sets the quickest lap of all, a 127.485, and he resets to the pit lane. George Boothby comes in second, 1.5 tenths off of the ultimate pace. What does Caracas have here? That was a slower lap by far, but Boothby into second, knocks Savalainen down to third, as many drivers, Wolf Gruber and McCauley, all setting a lap coming in pretty much as predicted here, waiting for those fast laps. I don't know, Mr. Mawson, if a 27.485 is good enough for pole here. I think there's a little left on the bone.
I think so too. And looking at our timing board, there's still a lot of people up as the 800 of George Boothby. This man is on the mission. He actually had about a 10th in hand coming up to that chicane, but that's the problem with the mid-engine McLarens. This car is so low, so aero-dependent. As you can see, the sparks fly. You just can't touch it as much as, say, the mid-engine Mercedes can. They can basically straight line that and not really be affected at all. This car is much more twitchy on the handling, but if anyone's going to handle it through all these chicanes, it is George Boothby. And what has Samir Foch got? Could be his first actual valid lap, all the way from 22nd. That will put him in 12th, 128.5, but I'm pretty sure this driver's also still got a little bit left to give.
Yeah, Samir did such a good job in the GT4 race yesterday. Probably learned a thing or two as well, and we'll try to apply that here today. Has been on a decent run, the 488 Ferrari. Must be said about Samir, hoping to continue that here tonight as well. I say tonight, but it's night for us in the real world, but it's actually morning here in Zolder. Adam Dubiel comes across the line, a 28.312, good enough for ninth place. Immediately knocked down. And Jardier now in the 9th place position. Nice to have Jards back after 2 weeks off. I heard that he was ill. Must be feeling better now. Certainly hope so anyway, as he's back on the track and nearly back on form. I reckon Jards has got a little bit left as well. Boothby improves again. Half a tenth there puts him within a tenth of Tico van der Velde for the pole. And you talked about the McLaren. I would completely agree. Not the track that comes to mind when you think McLaren. It has some limitations here that it might not elsewhere with the curbs and such, as you mentioned. But that just makes what Boothby's doing even more impressive.
And it shows the gap between, the McLaren drivers who are absolutely refined in that craft, and then basically people like me who can drive it. But if you put me on this circuit in a McLaren, I would be absolutely hopeless. Give me something that I know, Bentley perhaps, then yes, then I might start setting some okay times. And speaking of okay times, what has Max got? The 16 I was keeping my eye on in practice did look very strong, this Porsche, but in qualifying, I was going to say just sinking back a little bit, but there you go, a 127.9, just sneaking into the 27s. And point half a second exactly off the pole time. No more, no less. Very precise.
Max Wajna getting up there, that always feels good. You pick up 10 spots and you have a legitimate shot. Littell back in pit lane here. If Littell hurries, they might be able to get out, but it would be awfully close. That might be qualifying done for the driver of the 27 BMW. Everybody else still out on track. Littell's going to actually try it here. Oh no, and Savalainen has hit the curb hard enough to bounce himself into the dirt. That will absolutely ruin this lap. Fortunately for him, he will likely get another timed lap, so not all hope lost for Savalainen in third place. What does Malinowski have? We haven't talked about Fast Pasta. They just snuck inside the top 10 a moment ago into ninth place, and they have about 6 or 7 tenths to get up into the first row of the grid where we expect Malinowski to be. And we'll see if he can get there. Surely looks like he's taking the corners how he wants to. The car seems to be responding well to the curbs. Could be on for him.
Yeah, you can see him absolutely. You got to ring this AMG out. The torque curve of the AMG does not actually drop out, although a lot of drivers short shift this car thinking that you need to use the torque. Nope, the torque band does not drop off. You can see all the way up to 8,000 RPM. And it looks like a good improvement for Malinowski at the minute. You just got to keep it through his last two corners with that anti-cut on the inside, which can throw a driver. If you go over it too much, it will completely unsettle the rear end of your car. And there you go, 9th to 4th, and he will get one more lap. And that is just breathing down the neck of Savalainen there. So we have 3 Mercedeses in the top 5, and then Boothby in the lone McLaren.
That lone McLaren holding steady in second place. Savalainen needs the better part of 2.5 tenths to get close to Boothby, let alone take a front row spot. Joe McCauley has struggled a little bit in this session. A struggle as much as you can say being 1.3 off the aliens of the sport anyway. Macaulay, who recently returned to sim racing here, has had some success immediately, as you would expect from Macaulay, but today struggling a little bit in the Lexus. Climbs as the first driver to finish their qualifying as everybody cycles through. Chinati now in the 51 Audi, a rare choice for this championship, finishes his Q run inside the top 10. Foch in 13th, Jardier back in 14th place as everybody cycling through. William Stevenson, who is going to end up 22nd place, warned me pre-race that they just didn't have pace this week at this track in that BMW. Turns out to be true. Caracas comes across in 8th place. That's where they will end up most likely. Tico Vandervelde comes across the line with a slight improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. The new bar, a 127.420. Zampiri in the 909 comes across. Max Payne now, who was up in the top 10 earlier. What kind of improvement will this be? It won't be one, unfortunately. Several 100ths off of the pace. Results of qualifying confirmed here. Tinko Vandervelde, your leader, sharing the front row with George Boothby. And that is an interesting fight for reasons we're about to explain. Let's see the points. Championship points look exactly like this. George Boothby holding on to the championship lead, 192 over Tinko Vandervelde. And those positions are flipped for the pole position today. Vandervelde not letting Boothby get away here, and neither is Jonas Savalainen as well with 159. Caracas back in 4th place with 143. Valentin Berrier rounding out the top 5 with 138. 8 points behind him, Samir Foch in the 488. Malinowski down in 7th place with 116. Tidge, Martin Grady, who I didn't see in qualifying here today. I wonder if he's here in the 102 or on 102 in the 18. Jacques Amelli in 9th place with 99 points, 1 point behind him. Chris Severt or Sievert, depending on how you want to pronounce that, inside the top 10. 93 points for Littau, who had a decent qualifying effort today. Looks to gain some points. Jardier back in 12th with 87, tied with Joe Macaulay, who joined mid-season. Both those drivers have missed a race, and how fitting is it that they are tied for points for 12th. Wajna in 14th with 76. 1 point behind him is Ostrich, rounding out the top 15, and then Zampiri on 72. Wolf Gruber 1 point behind that. Adam Dubiel in 18th place with 63 points. Chinati 3 points behind him with 60. Sizek rounds out the top 20 with 46 points. Max Payne with 44 in the 21st position. The 814 with 43, just one off that mark. Jack Alexander with 40 points in 23rd. Climbs 24th. Will Stevenson with 31 points rather. Levchenko with 22. Scarmato and Ruben here with 15 apiece. Kellaway doesn't have any points, and nobody else has entered a race thus far. That's what the little dash means. Either that or they've retired from the series. Well, that was a lot to take in, but the most important thing to note is, of course, that Tinko Vandervelde, Ryan Mawson, is on the pole today, trying to keep Boothby from running away with it like he did a season ago, and he's doing a good job of that.
Yeah, this is a battle that, that we've seen countless number of times. These drivers are very, very familiar with each other. And that makes it, the racing so great because they know how close they can get to one another and what they can do to keep each other behind. But look at Sector 1, the purple time being held by Boothby in the McLaren. Basically, it smashes the AMGs. That is a tenth and a bit, which in this field, that is a huge difference. But that mid-sector, 0.3 of a second, that is just where the McLaren struggles. It's that chicane and the first chicane, second chicane. You just can't take as many liberties. And in the third sector, they're basically neck and neck. That's not here nor there. Coat of paint there will alter that time. But it's going to be a phenomenal race. If Boothby's gonna pass the 66 Mercedes, he's going to have to do it in Sector 1, where that car is incredibly strong. You can do it. We've seen it time and time again. In fact, we saw it in GT4, that an overtake right at the start is possible if you get around the outside of them. It's going to be tricky, though, to make that move stick, though, on Tinker.
Well, here, anything is possible. We cannot overlook the fact that we are at Zolder. It's a track that I love for the historic aspect, for what it means to touring car racing, F1, etc. And you and I could wax whimsical about that all day long, but unfortunately, that's not what we're here to do. What we are here to do is watch a GT3 race, and a very important one. If Tinko gets the upper hand on Boothby today, this could be a turning point in this championship. Tinko has already put a win in the column, but today he could absolutely take all of Boothby's momentum away, and that might be all Tinko needs to get himself back into, not only he's in the conversation already, but back into the driver's seat in this championship today. And also, don't ever forget, traffic is going to play a factor today, eventually as well. And remind me, lapped cars, easy to overtake?
Not at this circuit, very much not so. There's basically nowhere where you can safely let anyone by. I think there's a few odd spots, but if you get stuck after that second chicane in the middle of the circuit, it's just a one car line. You can't go for it right up until the end, and then you can be safely let by. So that can very, very easily switch battles around, or reignite battles that we thought might have cooled off, as we see all the cars now getting all the lights on and rolling out for the formation lap. Nice early sunrise here. You can just see the nice orange glow cresting over the trees, and yeah, it is one of the circuits as well where I actually prefer these kind of conditions. That low light, it just, where this circuit is historically, it looks great.
Well, you will have noticed that there were 22 qualifiers, but only 21 cars. That's because Joe McCauley has reported to us that he has experienced a crash. And that is unfortunate, because if that would have happened at the end of qualifying, he would have been able to get back in. But unfortunately now it is too late. I think actually he might still be able to connect. I'm not entirely sure how that works. I've seen it happen before, and he might be able to get back in and start from pit lane. We'll have to see, considering he did officially qualify for the race. But we will keep you posted on that. But cheers, Joe, anyway, for reporting that to us. That is the single most frustrating thing ever. You spend your time practicing and getting into a race, qualifying, and then all of a sudden it gets taken out of your hands by something that you couldn't hope to possibly control.
No, exactly. That is, sort of the worst feeling. And I think when we were talking about the standings, you were on about where is Martin Grady. Well, here he is for the Pleb Racing McLaren, all the way back 7th position. But Martin Grady, he's one of those racers you can never discount, no matter where he starts, because he races much, much better sometimes than he qualifies. This car will just come out of nowhere. We'll have the cool, calm, collected approach, and he'll end up right at the front of the grid. In fact, he's done it before with us in his Bentley, and we've been trying to wonder out where he even came from after the pit stops.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Martin Grady looking for a good drive here today. Adam Dubiel did not hit the drive button in time, apparently, because he is sitting in pit lane, though that might be tactical by the ForzaItalia.pl driver. And I know that there were a couple of conversations had by the drivers amongst themselves pre-practice today on whether or not they should start in the back of this race today. And let's just say the track's reputation precedes itself. 2x2 around the last corner and down the chicane as Tico Vandervelde and George Boothby head the front row, coming to get the green flag. Savalainen and Malinowski in the second row, Wajna and Lital in the next. Who will get the run down into turn one? Can anybody make a run around the outside? The green flag is down, the lights are on, and it's a clean getaway from Vandervelde. Near bumper cars there from Boothby as he pulls up, and he's getting swamped by Savalainen. Savalainen now back to fourth place as Malinowski up behind his teammate. Boothby and Savalainen second and third. Vandervelde clearly out in front. A couple of cars, a little bit of fender benders, but no caution flags here, as I'm forced to believe that was just about a clean start right there.
I mean, there you go. You can see the whole field pretty much in that camera shot. And yeah, apart from the 840 who's just left the pits, that's it. And everyone comes almost too wide through some of these chicanes, which is absolutely terrifying to think of. There's barely room for one car here. But yeah, for some of the great starters, the 27 Leto actually got the jump on Savalainen. You just saw that BMW sneak up the inside. It looked like Boothby tried for the, the cutback at the last second, was blocked by Tinko, and that's what I was saying. I have a feeling Tinko even knew that that was coming. Blocked it off, and then everyone's sort of shuffling back. But look at this. This is the type of racing that you expect in the, the high pro splits. Just everything. Everybody still no yellow flags. Everybody's still nose to tail. But Tinko Vandervelde has decided that it's time for me to run away. I must go now. My Mercedes needs me.
This is the best case scenario for Tinko, leading the first lap and getting out of Dodge as long as you can. George Boothby races well. He qualifies well. You don't want to give him any scraps or breadcrumbs. Juna Savalainen, who looked like he had a shot at second place in turn two right about here, ended up getting shuffled by Malinowski and Lital and is now down to fifth place, trying to get the fourth place spot away from the 27 BMW and trying to work the inside of every corner, probing for weakness here. Can't allow this to happen. Can't allow Boothby to disappear up in front of him. Keep in mind, all these drivers still very much alive in this championship today. You cannot understate how important this round could possibly be. I can tell you that whether it was a mistake or on purpose, Adam DeBille is out on the track in his 840. He launched right after the field went by, as is allowed. And I can tell you that Macaulay has reconnected but has yet to leave the pit lane. Absolutely frustrated is Joe Macaulay in the pit lane.
Yeah, at least the 188 Lexus has managed to reconnect. It's one of those, at least you can see the grid and see the action. It would be nice to see the 188 out. Like I said, in qualifying, maybe not their day, but they were still doing great in what is now considered, actually, when you think about it, and a scary thing to think about. The Lexus is now, outdated. No one runs it anymore in the real GT World Challenge. I think Tech 1 were the last team to continue running that car, except I remember going to see it. So I think that's a sign of me getting older.
Yes, of course, the Lexus still ran in GT competition in America throughout the entire season. There's several teams in IMSA this year, as there always are, but on the international scale, I think it's only America and Japan where that car is run in GT competition. I don't think it runs in any continental series or any European continental series now. So yeah, it's very much a one of the older cars in the race in general as well. We take a look at Caracas here, working on Wajna for the sixth place position. It's easier said than done to get a pass done around here. One of the harder places to get a move taken care of, as I've just noticed George Boothby, the fastest car on the racetrack, and catching up to Vandervelde up front. Malinowski not far behind, as the top five are all within about 2.5 seconds of each other. And here is Max Payne, qualified okay, now back down to 17th place in the GTR. Love to see the support for the GTR. We talk about dinosaurs of race cars. This car basically abandoned, which is a good thing for us here in ACC. Means that the devs are allowed to tune it and keep it relevant in the series, and we always love to see it here. Keep in mind, Payne is trying to get by Sievert here for the 16th place spot.
trying to get by, but that is a Honda in front. There is Chris Seaver, a man who's quite often seen in the Honda as well, quite a fan of that, which is another car that is a rarity. And sort of, you know, between this shot that we've got on our screens, that's quite a rare sight. You know, you don't see many Porsches anymore, apart from the few people who really love it. They used to be incredibly common. You very rarely see a GTR, and you rarely see a Honda outside of IGTC, where its bop is much more favorable to it. So it's kind of like, you know, the old days of ACC racing. But yeah, you talk about dinosaurs, the GTR in one form or another I think dates back to 2010 as the GTR looks on the inside, does Max Payne. Pokes his nose there, but it was not to be. The door was slammed shut firmly.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Like you said, the GTR, the R35 race car that we know today, started out as a GT1 car, and Will Stevenson taking a ride here. Was this a solo incident here in the chicane? Now that's perplexing. I don't know exactly what I saw there. Will Stevenson didn't touch that car in front, did he?
I think he did. I think he just lightly on the brakes. It looked like he was ever so slightly late on the brakes and just tapped the BMW around, so waited for, you know, the car to go back through. And as well, we haven't mentioned it yet, but we do still have live stewarding for this event. So I think that will also be playing on that driver's mind. You know, you've got to keep your P's and Q's in check. But other than that, really, it's been a lap one where the stewards maybe haven't had to do much.
Caracas now trying to get by Wajna side by side in the chicane. That almost never works, and only through the power of will and a little bit of accident avoidance, they still end up side by side. And this could be a 2-for-1 special here, and it might just be, contact there with the SC18 of Grady. Contact again. Caracas spins Wajna there. We're going to take another look at that. Ryan Mawson, what did you see?
Well, there you go, 2 into 1 at this back section. It never really goes. The Porsche, you know, eventually you have to start turning in for the corner. There's still a McLaren there, so definitely one for the stewards to mull over, and I'm pretty sure that in a little bit we'll have the decision on that. Hey, at least now they've got something to do. They can't get used to these clean races and, you know, sitting around. You've got to get your pencils out, lads.
There is a stat I want to give you whenever we have a moment here. Caracas trying to fight against Jardier, who, regardless of where Jardier qualifies, you know he's going to race better. You can take that to the bank. There's a couple of life inevitabilities, and Jardier coming through the field is one of them as he gets one more spot there. Caracas puts up a good fight, but it is Jardier's corner and position up to 8th place. By the way, Grandpa Boothby points out that Lexus doesn't race in Super GT anymore. It's been replaced by the Super, so America is the only place where there is a Lexus program. Caracas going up on 2 wheels. It's not a motorbike, son. It's a GT car.
Well, at least we did get to, verify that the bottom end of that car, the aero is still good. 119, if you are listening to this, your underfloor damage, there is none of it. We have verified it.
Wow, that was very scary moment. I can't imagine that felt very good in the race car. A Ricky Bobby moment there. I'm flying through the air. This ain't good. But he somehow just landed it and kept going like you're supposed to. And wow, I've never seen a car get up on 2 wheels that high. You could have changed the oil in that car that was so high up there.
I don't think when the world orientation that you're seeing out of the windscreen becomes 45 degrees that this is the general line that you take in racing, unless I am doing it wrong. But yeah, I don't think that would have looked. It must look incredibly weird out of the windscreen there. I might have to, after the race, look at some of the broadcast cameras just to see how that looked from the inside, because that was wild. And while all this was going on, we didn't look back up to the front as Jonas Savalainen attempts it again. But that Merc is just too heavy to fly, really. He has actually got past the 27 of Letao, now starting to march his way back up. But while he was held behind that BMW, and while they were still battling, a 2.9 second gap has opened out to Malinowski.
Well, while that happens, Tinko, of course, with the quickest lap again. That's what the magenta number means, of course. And I want to lay this statistic on you, Ryan Mawson, right after I mentioned something that Ryan Gill, our broadcaster, said. Ryan Gill said, man kick-flipped a car in reference to the McLaren earlier. I thought that was absolutely funny. But beyond that, I've been told by the stewards, who we haven't heard much from, and for good reason, laps 1, 2, and 3 were completely clean, according to the stewards. That has to be a Zolder record for any sort of race. I don't think I've ever experienced that, as Chris goes off the track ever so slightly, getting all of the runoff room there. That car doesn't seem to be handling too well at all at this point. But I'm going to flash back to Wednesday. For those of you that were with us Wednesday, the Diamond Drive Cup, that was the cleanest race of the year. And they went the first lap with completely clean, no contact. There was a record low amount of stewards' inquiries for a 1-hour race. That was until tonight, where we had 3 consecutive clean laps to start a race. That is an RCI record.
And then the 4th lap, we return back to normal action. It will happen eventually. I think that this track, you have two drivers, or two sort of mindsets of drivers that race here. There's the ones that want to get, they go for every move possible because they know it's such a hard track to pass on. And you have those that will take their time, be very calm and collected about it. And because of that, you get these low incidents. I think now, just as the field's starting to spread out, just as people are getting used to their cars, they're warming up and they're getting used to the fuel loads, I think they're going to start going for moves that are going to be more and more, how should we say, brave.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. As the time ticks away and the sand gets smaller in the hourglass, you're sort of you get a bit more brave too. You know what you're doing, and also you have to be a bit more brave as well with your movements that you do in the race car, because you have less time and you've got to get moves done. We see people get very desperate in the final moments of a race. It's not just the last lap, but right around the final 10 minutes or so, it all gets a bit hectic, and I reckon we'll see that today as well. We haven't talked about the pit requirements today. Well, they're the same as always. You have to be sat still in your stall for 25 minutes taking fuel, regardless of how much you need. So that's sort of in response to taking 1 liter of fuel, which we do for we have done and did do for a long time in championships. So this season, of course, in the GT Sprint Challenge, 25 seconds stationary in your box. Everybody has to do that. The question is, when do you do that? And Ryan Mawson, should people have done that really early in the race if they were stuck in traffic?
Well, some people have already opted for that, for that strategy. I think as we return to pictures, the 488 Samir Foch, he is one of the drivers who've decided that has had enough of that. Chris Seaver and the 814 Mercedes. Interesting to see where they will. You've got to keep an eye on these people. It's such a hard decision. On a big open track, it's maybe a little bit of an easier decision, because you can basically end up on the other side of the track where no one is and just start hot lapping. You can still do that on a small track like Zolder, but you have to take into account that puts you far closer to the leaders, who you will be blue flagged for, and you will have to let them through. Now, is the time loss in letting them through, does it outweigh the battles? Well, that's up for the driver to decide, really.
Of course, we do apologize for losing our feed momentarily. We bring you back to live pictures here. Thank you for bearing with us. You will have noticed in that interim, George Boothby is 2 seconds behind Vandervelde, but now has the quick lap again. They've been feeling each other out like a couple of prize boxing competitors. And I'm curious now, Boothby the quickest on the track, but hemorrhaging time now, 0.3 thereabout in that sector alone to Vandervelde is the McLaren getting to Boothby, or is the 66 AMG coming to Vandervelde? We'll have to see. And you were talking about De Kaiser earlier in the 814. They came in right after the Will Stevens accident. I wonder if De Kaiser was the one that had the contact and came in, but either way, even if that's not the case, they are the leader of the cars that have pitted thus far. Meanwhile, Boothby falling back. Malinowski might be coming forward a little bit. How's this going to work with two Yas Heat drivers, Boothby and Malinowski?
Well, I think we know, and we've talked about it before, and asked Yas Heat, you know, is there any team orders? Do you have to be gentle to one another? And the response to that is absolutely not. If you are, if you're going to go for it, you race as if you are not the same team. I think a lot of drivers share this philosophy as well, that we're friends after the checkered flag, but once the green flag drops, no, you're an enemy of mine right up until that moment again. And Malinowski just closing in on Boothby. You can see though that where the McLaren loses it, he does manage to pull out a tiny bit of time in sector 1, but 2 and 3, it's all for the Mercedes to play. And the other person, just keeping an eye on things, of the early pitters, actually Jardier, the number 39, has come down pit road.
They sure have. Jardier in the pit lane, getting that stop done. My next question for you, Mawson, is if you are Vandervelde, do you try to stay out as long as possible and kind of try to ride this momentum with Boothby, or do you see him struggling a bit, and do you come in now and get it out of the way? From your professional opinion, what's the right strategy for our leader?
If I was looking at the track map and I was Tinko, I would be trying to stay out as long as possible. A lot of the cars are still bunched up in this big train that we're seeing now as we jump back to the 966 of Max Payne, which is that's a 4-way battle, could potentially be a 5-way battle with the Adam Dubil Ferrari in front. But looking at the track map, the 66, they want to stay out as long as possible. They need to maximize all the time that they've got when they're gaining on Boothby, and hope that Malinowski catches up enough to where, they might start to battle and lose even more time. But if I was the 66, stay out as long as you can.
Yeah, I would have to say that makes complete sense to me. And by the way, just as Boothby was losing time, he started to gain just a little bit. We'll see if that trend continues here as we approach the halfway point in the race. De Kaiser still the leader of the cars that have pitted. Jardier all the way back to 20th. I could have sworn that Jardier was stuck in pit lane for a very, very long time. And in fact is just now exiting pit lane and getting back on the track just now in turn 2. So something happening with the 39 BMW that took them he crashed, I'm being told. I'm reading chat now as well. Thank you for confirming that Jardier had a crash and must have repaired the damage, which is why he was sat there so long. This is the traffic you were talking about, Mawson. Heavy traffic for Max Payne here, trying to navigate this. And keep in mind, it's more than just traffic for Payne, as he's going to continue all the way to Spa-Francorchamps there just about, and around the corner into the pit lane. That was probably the best move for Max Payne, was in the middle of a fight there. He got himself out of a fight. Now, if he comes out in clean air, that's the right move. If he ends up in another pack, that's probably a bad move. But it is the hand you're dealt and the risk you take.
Yeah, exactly. And looking from our broadcast camera, I don't know about you, but I think there's actually some damage on the McLaren and the Audi. The right side of the Audi looks damaged, and the front end of the McLaren looks a little bit damaged. So I think, Max Payne, that GTR in clean air probably does have the little bit more of a pace. He just decided, and that did very much look like a driver decision that, couple of laps here, and eventually, no, I'm losing too much time. I've got to get out of this situation. And you play the cards you dealt. The GTR, though, I would say, can sort of do one of these longer stints. It's not as bad on fuel as some of the other cars, like the Mercedes is. They take quite a lot of fueling up, and it's okay on tires. I mean, it's not a car I would take to, a 24-hour endurance race at Suzuka, for example, where you got to chew them, but it's not bad on them.
Jan Klimes trying to get by Wolf Gruber. Wolf Gruber trying to get by Chinati for 11th place. So this is how this, by the way, Chinati is only behind Dubil by about 2 seconds thereabout. And that underlines the issue that Mawson was talking about earlier, is that there's still this gigantic train of cars, 5, 6, 8 cars long, multiple places around the racetrack still. And jumping out of line could be beneficial to come down pit lane, or it could hurt you even further if you end up back in a pack or in a battle that you weren't a part of. You don't want to get stuck behind anybody. I can tell you that De Keyser's still the leader of the cars that have pitted, but unfortunately has a 15-second penalty. And speaking of that, some more penalties. 15-second penalty for car 108. I believe that was Will Stevenson's car for taking out the 909. They did return the position, that on lap 4. 15-second penalty for De Keyser in the 814 for taking out the 51, position given back. Contact afterwards are racing incidents deemed by the stewards as we watch this here. Yes, indeed. So 15 seconds for the 814. Racing incident between the 51 and the 41. Racing incident between the 840 and the 966. Warning for car 488 for avoidable contact, not holding a line. Racing incident, no car at fault for an incident between the 18 and the 119. But I see them still working, Mawson.
Yeah, still got some work to do. And yeah, as we were running through the penalties there, that 993, that was Malinowski, that car. That looked an incredibly beaten up Mercedes. That has taken a hard hit to the front. We saw briefly a replay, but it was too far back for us to catch. So I wonder what's happened to the 993. Could it have been a maneuver, through that second chicane? We've seen the Mercedes drivers taking incredible liberties there. Maybe it was one liberty too far.
Well, we talked about it in the pre-race about nobody being immune. Even if you're the leader of this race, you can be involved in accidents that are completely not your fault, or just that, an accident as well. Nobody here is immune. This track will chew you up and spit you out. You got to be on your game the entire time. And case in point, Malinowski, one of the fastest racers at ACC that I know of, and having issues of his own, and don't know exactly what happened at that point, but completely had a crunch moment, or perhaps a Mike Jones bonk moment, and all of a sudden finds himself outside the top 10 in pit lane. Will likely fix the damage as well.
Very most likely, considering that car is still sat there, but that's going to be a long time to fix the damage on that car. That was a heavy impact. But if you're, Malinowski, he'll come back out of the pits and it will be an absolute charge back through the field. We've seen it before, and I think I've seen it personally as well in a race that even I've been in, where Malinowski ended up somehow behind us and then came charging up to us so fast that we just pulled out of the way. We were like, you know what, this is not worth holding him up. We're just going to get out of the way as Max Payne takes the alternate route of the chicane. That will start to give him the track limits though, and I'm pretty sure all the drivers are looking down that little track cuts box and thinking, please don't.
Yeah, one thing that we don't have here in the booth, but all the drivers have, and if you are a fan of a driver, you already know this because you see it on the stream, but in the bottom right or the bottom left corner, right beside the timings in their cockpit, they will have a track cuts counter if they have them. You get 3 of those for warnings, and then the 4th one is a drive-through penalty. And keep in mind, you can't do your pit stop and your drive-through penalty at the same time. So essentially an extra trip down pit lane just because you cut the track. And that was actually going to be my next question, was would that give Max Payne a track limit warning? And I suspect it would.
Most likely it would. It looks, the cut that was given. You can have 2 kinds as well, where you either have delta, where you gain time, or some of them are just proximity. If you completely cut a corner, or you run too wide off the circuit, no matter what happens to the time, sometimes it will just give you 1. And this is after the 1.8 update as well. The track limits were reworked or retweaked, and some drivers still learning where they are. I mean, even after that update, you've not necessarily raced on every single circuit yet, so it's definitely one to keep in the back of your mind. But I mean, I could get drive limits here, track limits before 1.8, so I didn't need any help with that.
Mike Jones chiming in with a bonk of his own in chat. Steven in chat letting us know, confirming our worst fear that this driver right here, Max Payne, found a pack of cars on the exit. That is the risk versus reward. Max went for it, and it's not yet a bad idea, everybody. If he's able to work through this traffic like he is doing and not have it hold him up too much, it still might be the right call. Valentin Berrier coming out of the pit lane will absolutely beat Max Payne out, so Berrier will be the leader on the track of the cars that have pitted. Keep an eye on the 72 Porsche to make up some spots on the end of this race. We'll see if that is the case or if the overcut was the right idea. Nearing the halfway point, track's optimum 22 degrees, light breeze, mostly cloudy here in Zolder. No better time to remind you that of our partners that we have here, Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and SimRacing.gp. We'll have more information about those fine folks after the race today. Chris Sievert here in the 83 Honda, trying to get by De Kaiser and trying to hold off Samir Foch.
Which holding off Samir Foch is going to be a difficult task.
I don't think anyone's ever done it, yeah.
No, it's a difficult task, but what we were saying is that 488 was one of the incredible early pitters. And even though the pit delta was still, very good, I just don't think that was the call for it, and that's the risk versus reward that we says. It didn't work for Foch this go around. If you're a little bit further up the pack, the Max Payne car, the 966, they're just up the road, but still in a big gaggle of cars. So it's hard to call. And looking on our track map as well, the little triangle, that is the leader of the race, that is the 66, are coming up to traffic as what is this going to do? 814 is off. Chris Sievert scuttling up the road, but Samir Foch decides... He was like, laid onto the brakes, and that is how you get it done. See, and that's what I mean. He waited, knew that we could have gone for the move there, but it would not pay off. We're going to sit, calculate, find a move that will absolutely pay off and get by. So now, the position resumed. Just now, there's a Mercedes behind them.
Brian Mawson, I believe that you have an update with car 993. Something else has happened to the AMG of Malinowski.
Yes, well, that and reading the chat as well. And I'm scanning through my monitors trying to find it. But the 993, they had that big shunt, came in, fixed the damage. They went out again, and then they seem to have had another incident on track. So the 992, or the 993 even, sorry, has been towed back to pit lane and where it currently sits. So a day to forget, I think, for the 993. Something terrible has happened to their race.
It's rather unfortunate. Malinowski having all sorts of problems here, and maybe a little bit more to the point for Yaz Heat, they lose one of the assets to their team. Who knows if having Malinowski up there would have proved pivotal to keeping Vandervelde close, but we'll never know that now. All we do know is that the Williams esports driver is absolutely flying. He's not leaving Boothby, so to speak. There is Boothby for reference, but and Savalainen too, to be fair, in the red AMG behind, but it is just enough to keep him at bay. And that if Vandervelde's able to do that for the remainder of this race, that's all he's got to do to win this race, is just keep him at arm's length, doing a great job. Vandervelde's bested him once. He's looking to do it today and send a message that Boothby is not going to walk away with this championship like he did a season ago. I love a good scrap.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, when you get races like that, you think, can anyone beat this driver? They've just been so dominant for the whole last season. And Tinko came along and went, yes, I can do that. The 66 showing us exactly how it's done. These times, looking at the last lap times, every time these guys come around, they're 0.2, 0.3 of a second, within one another every single time. It just yo-yos who's got the better lap, one lap, or who has a slight bit of traffic the other. And this is half an hour into the race where they've been pushing incredibly hard on these, on these tires and on these cars, still pulling almost their best lap times.
Yeah, just a correction for me. I'm thinking of Night Owl, I believe. George Boothby had a massive lead in the Friday Champ last season, but ended up not making all of the rounds, I think. And Tinko did win that championship, but this is a straight-up fight between the two of them in this series. But I do apologize. I believe I was referencing Night Owl, where Boothby pretty much ran the show for 6 weeks on end. But either way, not the case here tonight. And you can speak to it, Mawson, too, can't you, about beating a driver that you probably have a lot of respect for. I can see no reason why Tinko wouldn't have respect for George Boothby, but beating somebody that you race with every week, that you know has a lot of pace, up at the front of the field, that's the ones that mean something. That's what's special.
And those are the ones that you always go home with the biggest smile on your face, even if it's just like a Delta race like now, where it's kind of stabilized out, but you still have to be racing. You still have to push. You can't just, let off and cruise, because Boothby will just be all over you again. So you're still in this sort of mental battle. Every time you cross the line, you look down. What has Boothby done? Okay, I need to match that back onto the pace. Just going through that is sometimes a race that I think is always great. Yeah, I've had it. My one crowning moment, which I'll always say and I always smiled with, I led Boothby for all of 2 laps at Donington in a BMW, and then I died. But for those 2 laps, it was good.
Very fun times indeed. And I have my own fond memories of beating people I probably shouldn't have even been on the same racetrack with. It is very fun when it happens, and like you said, it's just stuff that you don't forget. Littell, Grady, Chinati, all in the pit lane, all exiting the pit lane. George Boothby has pulled the trigger as well. Will pit out of the second place position, handing over second to Savalainen, 2 AMGs up front for the time being. Can Savalainen find about a second to get in front of Boothby in the pit lane? We will see. Everybody else coming out. Littell, I believe, yes indeed, has just about made it out in front of everybody else. Martin Grady has done an excellent job with his pit stop up inside the top 5 for the number 18 McLaren. That's an incredible job, not only by the king of the plebs, but because of what car he's in, makes that an even more impressive sort of task that he has pulled off here.
And he's done it again. In fact, thinking back, when I was sat thinking about the race that we commentated on, where he did that as Chris Evert goes wide in the Honda, that will open up easily the door for Zamperi in the 909. Will it open the door up for the McLaren? No, it will not. Has a look, but falls back into line. But I think for the Martin Grady, wasn't it this track as well, that he also just appeared out of nowhere with his Bentley? I think it was.
Yeah, it was. It was actually one of his first races, if I remember that correctly, Mawson, that he came here and absolutely stole the show for us. But here he is, pleb racing. I call him the king of the plebs. I thought that was what his Twitch followers called him, but turns out I just sort of made that up. I swear to you, somebody said that in our chat as a joke. I ran with it. I call him the king of the plebs. Martin Grady converted from racing on console Sims to PC Sims, took to it like a duck in water, has since won several races here in RCI, just to name a few, and has been very competitive, but has struggled at some racetracks. This surely not one of them.
No, and sometimes as well, that is, you've got to sort of sit and think, is it the driver struggling, or is it the limitations of the car? Sometimes you get cars like the McLaren, which just at certain circuits, you just can't do anything with. No matter how hard you try and no matter how good of a driver you are, you just sometimes can't battle certain people.
So Boothby does cycle back out into 3rd place after his pit stop. The first of the cars that have pitted, only 2 cars that are running have yet to pit. They just happen to be the top 2. Vandervelde leads Savalainen by about 6 seconds. Boothby back in 3rd will likely take over that 2nd place spot unless Savalainen finds something here in the next few minutes to gain a little bit of distance. By my math, and I have been doing the maths, as you might expect, he only needed about 1.5 tenths to Savalainen to have a shot to get out in front of Boothby, but he needs it in a hurry. Littell, the better part of 12 seconds behind Boothby for what is 3rd place, will likely be 3rd for Littell either way. The fight for 3rd anyway. Martin Grady up in 5th, like we said, brilliant job. Balance and Barrier did an excellent job themselves up in 6th place. We ride with Climbs here, who's trying to chase down Chinati. I feel like everybody's made a habit of that today, trying to chase down that 51 Audi.
Yeah, it's poor Audi on the field as sort of being, you know, the marker of the next victim, and the 329. Paul, one of the Porsche drivers, one of the few Porsches that we've got on the field, actually one of only 3. Like I said, you remember not even that long ago where this car it was just everywhere was the Porsche, and the sound of flat 6 rung over every single racetrack. But the 51, the Audi, has gone wide at the chicane, an easy mistake to make. Porsche's round the outside, and there you go, even before the braking zone, it's all said and done. And once you let a Porsche ahead and they're allowed to use their, you know, the cornering speed of that car to the full potential, I think they will slowly start to will away. But here we go, back up to the front, George Boothby. That gap to Tinko has just been eliminated. Will he go for the move? It's incredibly close. The McLaren's got the cornering speed. The heavy, cold Mercedes on new tyres, potentially. What will it be? Will the 800 go for it? It's going to be hard to defend.
Well, you know what they say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that's exactly what Tinko must be thinking. Savalainen does it. He pulls the overcut out here and gets the job done just for a moment now, and he's right there is George Boothby in third place. This is a straight-up fight between 2 heavyweights here. Savalainen not only helping him, but helping Vandervelde as well, and this is pivotal here. If Boothby finishes third, Vandervelde's going to get a boatload of points, and Savalainen's going to get a lot of points as well. But looking down the inside is George Boothby. Boothby and Savalainen side by side coming through the kink. They're still neck and neck. Who has the more grunt? I would argue it's probably the AMG, and he's going to have the inside anyway. Who's better on the brakes? It's Savalainen. Holds on to that spot. I'm impressed the marker for Boothby hasn't updated in nearly half a lap. He's not in second. He's in third place. Please update that marker. It hasn't done. It's broken. Don't worry about it.
Oh no, and there you go. Look, that's the 66. It's the Williams Esports driver. That is actually Tinko. It's the blue Mercedes. Savalainen is the red one. Both Boothby is all the way around the outside. There's a little bit of rubbing there. Gonna need some new wing mirrors on that. Boothby is still there, still all the way around the outside. Can he make it 2 corners side by side? Yes, they can. Once again, a little bit of a touch. Boothby into the gravel. That will compromise his run down the straight, and you have to slot back into the AMG. And in the background, there is Savalainen.
Yeah, I did forget what color Savalainen's car is. I'm still getting used to the red, okay? It's messing with my brain just a little bit. But if you know what? If you just replace every time I said Savalainen with Tinko, everything I said still made sense. This is an excellent battle between the two, and I can tell you everybody else has pitted, so this is a straight up fight for the win. Boothby's undercut seemed to work. It gained him nearly 2.5 seconds to the back of Tinko. It's a straight fight between these two, and what did we say earlier near the end of the race? Everybody gets a little bit more desperate. Boothby's going for a move, looks to the inside, comes back in line, realizes he doesn't have enough time or closing speed. They are absolutely neck and neck here. If you had to pick a horse, Ryan Mawson, which one would it be?
It's going to be incredibly difficult. 20 minutes left. All the fuel out of these cars is pretty much gone. You're on almost qualifying fuel now. Both of them are going to be at the peak performance that they can. If Boothby had managed to get in front of that Mercedes before the tire pressures and before it warms up fully, I would have said that it would have been fairly easy for Boothby in that McLaren to defend. But you can see now, once the AMG starts warming up and once it starts getting wound up, then Tinko can really start to push. But Boothby is the man who, if I was going to pick any driver to do it, it would be this man right here.
It's going to be close. Now the gap opening up a little bit. We saw this early in the race. Tinko just having a little extra in the tank, the ability to sort of drive away just a little bit. Could that be the AMG's ability to hit the curbs perfectly to gain a little bit of an advantage, or is it something on the 800 Macca that is causing him to lose just a fraction of a tenth every lap or so? While we have a moment in the action, just going to mention a couple things that have happened. I'm going to completely omit the racing incidents. There was a warning for car 51 for dive bombing the 41, a 5-second penalty to the 41 for avoidable contact, a warning for car 840 for avoidable contact, and a penalty that hasn't yet been posted because they're re-reviewing it, so I will hold off. as we return to the action. Boothby chasing down Tico van der Velde. Nearly 2.5 seconds to gap earlier. It's now next to nothing. Savalainen in the wings, 5 seconds away with bated breath and a lot of interest in how this turns out. If these two cars get together and have heavy contact, Savalainen could walk away the winner in this race. Don't count out the third place driver in the 100 AMG. Littell fourth, Grady inside the top 5, and a huge shout out, Mawson, to the 840 Ferrari. Adam Dubiel started in the pit lane, started 22nd. That car is 8th.
And started quite a while behind the pack, did the 840, so they've been on an absolute charge. But yeah, the 800 using absolutely every single, I won't even say an inch, because that would just be, you know, an insult to how precise it is. Every millimeter of the runoff before the gravel. You've got one tire balanced on the edge, but every single time, every braking zone look and every kind of mid-speed corner, you can see the McLaren can close right up to the back of Tinko. But it's that second sector where the McLaren is hurt. The McLaren cannot do the lines that the Mercedes can. Once again, right up to the back is the 800. But you've got to find the chink in that armor. You've got to think, how do I get around Tinko van der Velde? And he is no stranger to fighting Boothby. He is no stranger to what Boothby might be able to pull. You're going to have to pull something special, especially at this racetrack.
Well, the dreaded track limits penalty has happened. Caracas fell all the way down to 18th place drive-through, not by the stewards, but due to track limits for the 119. The other penalty has been posted at this time, a drive-through for car 488 for taking out the 83 position not returned. And there was also a further up racing incident between the 488 and the 83. So a drive-through for Samir Foch, and this race has not been kind to Samir.
No, his early pit stop strategy, you know, it didn't quite work for the 488. It hindered their time, and now obviously that drive through for the penalty. One day, once again, where you're, you know, for Samir, he'll have to come back, and we know that driver, you know, it won't keep him down. He'll be back. He'll be back racing incredibly soon. But you know, even on the bad days, you can take away things from it. You can take away what, you know, to improve next time. Every single time, look, it's the 800 right up to the back of the 66, right up to the back of Tinko, but what can you do, especially with these, you know, the high pro drivers? You might think that eventually the stress of having a very luminous pink, I would say, luminous McLaren in your mirrors that close, putting that much pressure on you.
Hold on a minute.
It doesn't put any pressure onto cool as cucumber here.
Hold on a minute. I think I just learned something about Mawson. What color is that 800?
It's luminous.
No, but what color is it?
Well, I see it as pink. Why?
Okay, moving on. Nobody in chat tell him. We're just going to keep moving. Mawson, we will give you an eye exam after this race is over.
That's fine. I already wear glasses. Don't worry.
I'm absolutely worried about you now.
My color correction is not good.
Yeah, that is very purple, my friend, for us. Oh, wait, no. Are my eyes broken? Somebody in chat help us out. What color is the 800 McLaren? Now I'm worried it's me.
Basically, what we can say is that nobody knows, and continuing on.
Indeed.
Continuing on with it, it is it's bright. There we go. The nondescriptive color.
It is
bright.
Luminous.
Yes.
Very luminous indeed.
We will go with that.
Oh man, welcome to Friday Champ here with Ryan Mawson and me. It's weird they split us up, isn't it? It's strange. Very close is Boothby. Keeps making that move here in the final chicane, just taking a peek to see if he has the gap, and the overlap doesn't on this occasion either. We flash you back to Chris Sievert, who is in a world of traffic here. Wolfgruber with an additional 5-second penalty, trying to get by the 83 Honda and scamper up the road just a little bit. Would need 5 seconds on top of that. Mawson, I've actually got a genuine question here. Are you surprised as we go to replay here? Was there a little bit of an incident here or an overtake, I wonder? I don't think so. So, Mawson, I've got a question for you. Are you surprised nobody in this field left the pit stop to super late? Everyone came in sort of conservative in my mind.
I think that's partly with the racetrack, when we mentioned about the traffic, a lot of people will sit and wait to see what the rest of the field is doing or what the majority of the field is doing, because that then gives you the lower average time. As we saw, the 488 pitted very, very early. It didn't work out for them. People who've pitted a little bit later, Max Payne, gained a little bit, but, people like Martin Grady, like Barrier, all those cars that pitted basically when everyone else did, that was the greatest strategy. And so no, it doesn't really surprise me. And the strategy seems to have changed in ACC after 1.8. We always used to see people doing the extreme early undercuts, but now it's kind of a mix between the halfway house or do the entire race in a stop and drop.
Okay, Ryan Mawson, because we have a break in the action here, I just am going to say this. I'm pretty sure my eyes are the ones that are broken. Most of chat agrees with you that this car we're riding on board with, George Boothby's 800 McLaren, is pink. I see a very bright purple car. So unless chat's messing with me, my eyes are broken, not yours, as it turns out. So either way, you know what we've done? We basically recreated that dress meme from about a decade ago.
Oh, God. So this is now, if Boothby gets a hold of this, now he's just going to start making his race cars like even more weird colors just to really mess with us.
Don't give him ideas.
Oh, I am sure that Grandpa Boothby will forward on this information, and next week we'll have like a fluorescent yellow car or something. So, and speaking of the 800, taking a bit of a dive over the curbs, loses a little bit of time to Tinko, and that's the trouble that you get when you start pushing so hard. 13 minutes left. The clock is running down.
Yes, it is. Final 13 and a half minutes of the race. Caracas, who had a myriad of troubles early in this race, trying to get some of those positions back, trying to get by De Kaiser for the top 15 spot. Would have got that spot regardless, but now with that pass made, De Kaiser kind of made that very easy on the driver of the 119 Caracas there. You love to see that co-opetition. Now we'll set their eyes in front by about 4.5 seconds to Chinati in the 51 Audi to see if they can continue to gain here. Wolf Gruber appears to have given up the spot to the Honda in front. And now that was interesting, just sort of stopped there.
I think that was once again realized that he was going for the chicane, had to abort it. We saw the car once again launch over the curbs. I'm wondering if that driver might be on the verge of track limits, and that looks like a desperate attempt to not get that final one. I think some people might be running a little bit close with the in-game stewards on the limits that they have been taking.
Love seeing the chat explode in what is a little bit of agreeance, but also some completely opposite opinions on what the car colors are. Grandpa Boothby in chat also remarking on how it's impossible to set up the car with the pitting without pitting at halfway. I'd say that's a fair assumption, and I'm going to go with the pros on that one, as Boothby still within a second here has fallen off a little bit. We saw this in the first half of the race. Keep in mind, all it takes is one mistake by Tinko, and Boothby's not only there, but he's probably by as well. So don't discount these final 12 minutes of the race. Nobody has it in the bag until the checkered flag falls, but the Williams Esports driver has done a great job thus far. And Boothby as well, we documented not the best racetrack for that car, but still able to stay in very close touch with the leader of the race. And if Boothby does go on to win the GT Sprint Challenge Championship, Boston, we will probably think about today more than any other day. That's the day where their perseverance got them with a shot to win this championship, even though they didn't win. It's not about the winning. It's about finishing as high up as you can when you can't win. Boothby excelling at that today.
Yeah, you've always got to, maximize what your car can do, even on the bad days, even at a track which, it's not its strong suit at. And I mean, you can't really complain at second, can you? And as he says, it's not over till it's over. We've already seen the fellow Mercedes 993 Malinowski. He managed to have 2 accidents, of his own accord in that Mercedes. So it is not over until it's over. And looking up the field, there's still that tiny little pocket of traffic that I think these guys will have to pass through. Could that play into Boothby's hands? You can see actually up ahead that is the Mercedes and the Audi, the 51 of Sonotti.
It very well could be a couple of battles going on the track still, as we have 19 cars still circulating. We didn't document it well, but Malinowski has parked the car. He's been parked for quite some time. But other than that, we have 19 cars still circulating on the racetrack. A couple of penalties that did come out earlier, as De Kaiser here working on Chinati. As we documented earlier, this could be a very close fight. Chinati has fallen down just a little bit. De Kaiser has to go through, and the leader, I think that was, the leader goes through. They're still 3 wide. There goes Boothby. So Tico and Boothby get through. They have to go 3 wide. A little bit of cooperation from De Kaiser, who halfway hits the dirt, lets the leaders go through. Again, De Kaiser trying to get around Chinati at the same time, who has unfortunately been in free fall this race.
And that is, that's the moment that I mentioned about when when you look in the mirror and you see the leader, that evil Mercedes coming up, and you go, oh God, where do I go? How do I get out of this situation? I'm just going to go over here. Both of them did that. The bright pink McLaren goes through as well, and then continue on the race. And in fact, that battle, it didn't really disturb it. Look, right in the background, the 51, they're still nose to tail. And speaking of a nose to tail battle as well, this battle's been going on for quite a while, hasn't it? The 41 McLaren is still trying to get around the 83 Honda. Might not be in the end worth it, even if they get through. They have that 5-second penalty, but it's still honor, isn't it? You can say that you finished ahead of them on track.
Well, Grandpa Boothby saying that George Boothby spent 6 hours yesterday trying to set up the car and see if he could get it to comply, basically. And of course, Dad reckons that he's absolutely manhandling the car around here, which you would have to do, Father Boothby, with that Macca. It is not fun to drive that car around here from experience, I can tell you. Curbs are lava. Baguettes are lava. Everything that's not racetrack's lava, as it is most places. It's just magnified around here. And for him to be this close to have a shot, and he still does have a shot here in the final 10 minutes. I was just going to remark earlier how very fascinating the mid-pack battle's been. You got Sievert and Wolfgruber, who's been going at it pretty much the entire race. They've kept up with the action, been fairly clean as well. A lot of racing incidents with minor contact, very few penalties, the complete opposite of what we expected out of Zolder.
Very much so, and also looking at the times slowly but surely. Once again, this actually Boothby's starting to reel back in Tinko. I think it's the other problem with the McLaren that you do get is the closer you get to the car in front of you as well, not only have you got to carry that setup that he's worked so hard on, you have the aero wash of that huge Mercedes in front. That wing will just be disturbing all of the air, which the McLaren relies on so much because it is a very more aero-based car. And there you go. Into the International Space Station we go. We did get a good look at the sky there briefly, so thank you for the weather update, George Boothby. We can confirm it's still sunny.
We're gonna need to roll that one more time from the external cam, I think. Now we're gonna take a look at this. Look at this, folks. This car is completely vertical. Ooh. Space shuttle status confirmed for car 800. And that is the commitment. Don't you think for 1 second Boothby is riding behind Tinko. Boothby wants to win this race. He wants to get up there and just get one more shot to take Tinko. And I am pretty sure that if he look how late he breaks there. If Boothby, Ryan Mawson, gets one more shot, he is not going to shy away from body contact, I don't think.
Now they've already had, a bit of Robin is racing already. Once again, last laps incredibly close to one another. Last lap for Tinko was 127.9. Last lap for Boothby, 127.8. The gap keeps coming down slowly and slowly. And even when the car is basically vertical, George Boothby will have his foot buried through that firewall. He's thinking, come on, just give me that little bit more, little bit more. We've got 5 minutes on the clock. It's going to be as well, I think, and actually Tinko now trying to break the toe from the McLaren. I think it's going to come down to, do we have an extra lap? If it comes down to that, it's going to make it incredibly close.
Well, he made it through the first chicane without taking off that time. That's a plus, but still holding very steady. You can see how much that McLaren pulls up. All it takes, folks, and again, it's so hard to put it into words for those that haven't had the experience. If he makes one mistake with that car over those baguette curbs, those giant humps, he goes to outer space. He could roll, he could flip through the air. Any of those things are possible. We had a car up on its side yesterday, so if he hits them wrong, he goes to space, basically, does George Boothby. George Boothby wants to go to victory lane tonight, not to space. So he'll try to avoid that, but he has a lot to lose, but the one thing he wants to gain, I don't know, the pendulum might be about even right about now.
It's going to be, I don't think that, I know that I certainly can't call this. We're just going to have to keep watching on board. And looking in chat, Grandpa Boothby says that gonna pass Tinko over the top, he thinks. I mean, yeah, that could be a strategy. If you get the McLaren flying far enough, it could be like an aeroplane, and we'll just pass over the top. And actually, the 800 having a slight wobble there, I think that starts to show how hard these drivers have been pushing. These cars are getting tired once again through the chicane. There you go. You've got to keep up with that AMG, though. That is the problem.
Yeah, he's got to keep up, and every time he hits those curves, he's playing Russian roulette effectively, because if he misses it by a centimeter, that could be the difference between being, looking at the sky and, looking at first place. So being very technical, and also the other thing, you just saw it flash through the screen there, they are going to catch this group of lap traffic, 2 or 3 cars, 2 of which are quite close to each other up in front. They will likely get there before the end of this race. They're going to have just about, what do you reckon, 3 laps to go this time by, and you hope that they calculated the fuel correctly as well. We did have folks run out yesterday, and we will see if that's the case, but beyond that, this is a good fight between the top 2, a race down to the wire here. This is likely not going to change the championship standings tonight. Tinko will still likely be behind George Boothby, but he can effectively have the gap tonight with a first place finish tonight. If Boothby does it, however, Boothby adds another race win, and already impressive total that he has. Savalainen 10 seconds back at this point, waiting in the wings in no man's land. It is between these two. What will the lap traffic do? No, neither car goes over the bumps very well. Tinko gets wide. Here comes Boothby around the outside. He gets it done in the kink. Father Boothby might be Nostradamus because he called it over the top. George Boothby!
And there you go. We said no one in this race, even the race leader, is not, he is not out of the woods yet until it is over. One mistake, just one tiny little curb too far. The Mercedes skids out from underneath of Tinko. Almost exactly what happened to Malinowski, I believe. And there you go. Now it's George Boothby going through. And I believe, looking at the timer, this will be the white flag.
That was absolutely insane. I almost lost my voice right there. George Boothby does not go over top of Tinko, but takes him over the top of the race course, the highest point in the track. Tinko made one mistake all race. That's all it took for George Boothby to get through. Boothby was very patient, following behind the 66. He saw weakness, blood in the water for one turn. He pounced and took it. And what can Tinko do now? He is still in the wings here, right behind him. Can Tinko do anything to get back there? Will it be a late move? Will it be a desperate braking maneuver? We know the AMG is better over the curbs. What can he do? Will Boothby continue to try and be as aggressive as he can over the curbs? Will that bite him? What will the lap traffic do? I don't know if they're going to get there. I was sure they were going to get there, but now I'm not. Maybe they won't. It's going to be very close running to the flag.
Coming through the final sectors, the 800 just trying to pull away using everything that the McLaren's got, aka the better corner speed. We see how late Tinko is trying to be on the brakes. The roles have reversed. Now it's Tinko's turn to try maximize the handling of his Mercedes, because he knows that he has to stay with the McLaren. He has to get to the point where the McLaren, it is at its worst point, and pounce there. Pretty much the exact place where he lost the lead. And actually, I thought it was the white flag. It is not. Coming to the line, 9 seconds left. There you go. There goes the line. Now, this is the last lap of the race. If any move is going to come off, Tinko's going to have to pull it fast.
It's going to be very close. The clock ticks to 0. This is the last lap of the race. Boothby leads Tinko by absolutely nothing. Less than a meter, about a meter, thereabout. Lap traffic up in front. I'm not sure if they're going to get there. What will it be for the final time across the chicanes? Will it be clean for George Boothby, or will Tinko be able to get back on the offensive? All it's going to take is one false move, one movement from the McLaren, and that's all it will be for George Boothby. Clear over the first chicane curbs, probably the most dangerous of the three as well. Now down the hill into the left-hander and into the second chicane, over the curbs for the final time in sector 2. It's as close as you like. Absolutely nothing between them. Tinko right there, right behind George Boothby. That's as close as he could possibly get, trying to coax out a maneuver or a mistake. It hasn't happened yet. Into the hairpin and down to Ryan Mawson for the final chicane and the flag.
And there you go, lap traffic up ahead. But as he says, I don't think they're going to catch. What a day for George Boothby it's been. Started on that P2 position. He's got to hold it one more corner. The Merc is looking, it's looming in the mirror, but it will not be. It will be the 800 up to the line. And there you go. George Boothby takes the checkered flag and the win at Zolder. What an incredible drive in a McLaren. Beating a Mercedes here is no mean feat, especially when you've got Tinko van der Velde behind the wheel. And Jonas Savalainen comes home a well-deserved third as well.
That was an absolutely incredible drive by George Boothby, who didn't look the favorite today. But in the end, it absolutely came together in the best way possible. Got close with the pit stop. That was perfectly timed. And in the end, one mistake, the only mistake out of Tinko all day, gave George Boothby the shot to win the race. And he did it, folks. George Boothby has won another round of the GT Sprint Challenge and padded his championship lead. It is worth mentioning, though, Tinko van der Velde did take the Speed Juice Fastest Lap of the Race award, which is worth an additional point. So 2 additional points for Tinko, because he also qualified on pole, which is worth an additional point as well. So that limits the damage that Boothby winning today would have done. But even still, that's got to sting for the 66. Savalainen finishing third in class, a little bit off of the pace in comparison to the top two, but still a brilliantly held third. Littau fourth. Martin Grady Tidge, the king of the plebs, converts to a top 5, a brilliant top 5 at that. Barrier Wajna, Adam Dubil finishes 8th after starting 22nd. Give that man a hand as well. Climbs and Max Payne rounding out your top 10. Absolutely insane. I wouldn't have called that. I didn't have that on my bingo card, Mawson.
I like I said, I didn't call that at all. I honestly thought that the 66, they just looked so calm and collected. But as you says, those curbs, you take so many liberties with them to get the pace that these amazing drivers can get. And it can just all come undone for you. The moment was there, and George Boothby was right there to pounce. The undercut worked absolutely spectacularly like I said, we were talking about it all race. When is the best time to pit? Is it now? Is it very early? Is it later on in the race? Well, George found the exact moment, the exact minute, and says, now is the time. Just what a fantastic race. Zolder brings some great racing here, and I just hope that we have some more races here because it is fantastic to watch.
That was absolutely incredible. Normally, we like to interview the winner of the race. I'm being told by Boothby's father that there's an absolute meltdown happening on George's stream. I don't know if we're going to get George in here. I'd like to have an interview with him, but rather besides, let's debrief for a second of what we just saw. That is no easy feat. A McLaren winning at Zolder it's the underdog, and it's hard to ever say that George Boothby is an underdog, but today, Mawson, he absolutely was. He had to drive a perfect race to even have a shot. He does that. He gets the win, and just incredible stuff. And fresh off of their meltdown, we do have our first and second place drivers today. Well, I have to say, the two of you are absolutely put on a show for us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we're joined by George Boothby and Tinko Vandervelde today. You two were the stars of the show. What a brilliant race, and an excellent race at that. George, I heard you just had a meltdown. What happened?
Well, what didn't just happen? That was like one of the most insane races, especially at Zolder, of all tracks. Zolder, man. Just, like, Tinko had insane pace. We were going backwards and forwards, just, like, catching, but I kept making some mistakes because, blame the car, I guess. I'm going to do it. It's just a little bit inconsistent over some of the bumps to McLaren, but managed to try and get back past at the pit stop. We had a little bit of an undercut, and then we had some side-by-side battling for, like, what seemed like a whole lap. That was insane. And then I just couldn't quite get a move done or, like, get close enough, because when I got so close, I just washed out. Like, it's like the McLaren decided that downforce didn't exist anymore. So I was trying my hardest, and then there was some back markers, and I just thought, you know what, we're going for the win. So I sliced it through the middle of them and got onto Tinko's back, and then he made a mistake. And the thing about this track is mistakes are so easily done, because I've been making mistakes that whole race. But thankfully, just the way the momentum worked on my side there, Tinko made his mistake when I was right near him, so I was able to capitalize on it. And yeah, got the win. So I just can't believe it. Tinko, absolute legend today. Thank you for the great race.
Would you say, George, that was one of the hardest races you've ever ran? Your dad said that you were concentrating, you were so tense in the cockpit. Is that the case?
Yes. Yes.
George, one more for me, and I'm going to turn Mawson loose on you. I just got to ask, 2.5 seconds back, Tinko is yarding you a little bit. You come into pit before he does. Did you do that to maybe give yourself a chance to catch up? Did you think it was possible at that point? Had you settled for second place? What was the mentality in the car?
I pitted when I was out of fuel, so I couldn't really change that strategy unless I pitted earlier. But I practiced where to brake into the pits on the practice beforehand. I'm so glad I did that, because I just perfectly sent it in. It was literally perfect pit stop. And then that meant I guess, like, Tinko probably had an all right pit stop, you know, but I absolutely sent it. So it meant that I could get right on the back of him, and I had a really, really good outlap. I just made sure I nailed it. And like I say, it almost paid off there, but then Tinko did what Tinko does and just kept the position and started gapping me again. He started doing Tinko things, but just somehow came back around. So yeah. I'm out of breath, sorry.
Well, I gotta say, it was absolutely worth it. I screamed bloody murder. I blew everybody's eardrums out. Luckily, you guys couldn't hear our stream, because I absolutely screamed when that happened. I'm gonna turn it over to Tinko. Tinko, what a race you had. Fastest lap, pole position, but in the end, just one little bump. Is there anything you could have done different?
Oh man, first of all, that was such a good race. I love that. George, you're a legend as well.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
always so nice battling you, man. But yeah, the bump. I don't think I had the best line, but still, normally it didn't bottom out like that. So pretty pissed, but it is what it is, and it was just a good battle, and that's what matters. And I loved it.
Well, Tinko, you're a race winner yourself this season, and second is not anything to stick your nose up at in any way. I mean, today it was just such a good race that you've already actually answered my second question is what are your thoughts about racing George week in and week out like this? But apparently you really enjoy it.
Oh yeah, for sure. George is one of the best racers out there, and also most of the time is really clean. So it's always really enjoyable. Yeah, like you can see, we can just run side by side. Yeah, we have little touches, but that's just hard racing,
That's
little
racing, man.
banging.
That's racing.
Yeah, that's fun. But it's not like we do dirty moves on each other. It's always really fun.
So that answers my other question. My follow-up was going to be, would you have moved him out of the way if you could have? The answer, I guess, is no.
No.
Well, I got to say, you two absolutely put on a show. And Tinko, you every week have a shot to go out there and battle George and win races. It really is the tale of the two of you. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know, but it's just really good between us, and I love it.
Absolutely brilliant job, Tinko. I say, for me, that might have been race of the year so far. Well done to the both of you. Congratulations, both George Boothby and Tinko today. Absolutely left it all on the racetrack. You're not going to find two more gentlemanly and respectful drivers that rub fenders than these two. Congrats, guys, and good job.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
nice
so
one
much.
again, Tinko. Awesome battle, man.
GG.
That's not entirely what I was expecting right there. I was thinking that the two would be sort of heated, but I guess not. They love the competition. They love racing each other like that.
And yeah, I think I mentioned it in the in the sort of the mid race. It really feels like those two. That is the type of friendship that as soon as the checkered flag drops, friends with one another, great laughs. Complimenting it, each other on the driving and how good of a race it was. As soon as that green flag drops, though, you are sworn enemies right up until the end, and it was just absolutely fantastic racing from the start to the end. I think Tinko actually puts himself down a little bit there. You said, what makes them so different? The man's got speed. We can confirm that he has the speed.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I love the sportsmanship. I love the mutual admiration and respect that Tinko and George have for each other. They're going to go out there. They know what they're going to get. They're going to get good, respectful driving. There's not going to be any dirty moves or anything that you might end up in a steward's report, really. They're going to race each other as hard as they possibly can. One day Tinko comes out on top, the other day George does. It's an absolute treat to have them here with us in RCI competition, and just because races like that. Well, we do, of course, look into the future. Just 2 races left in the Friday Championship, and next week, normal service resumed. I will be here with Mike It Really Slaps Jones and Stewie in the box. We will not have Night Out this weekend, by the way, of course, because we have the first of the World Tour races, the first race of 2022, the 10-hour of Nürburgring. You can find all 10 hours of that race live here on RCI TV tomorrow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss a single lap of that. And then, of course, on Monday, the conclusion of the Euro Masters Championship, that is. And immediately following the penultimate round of the Euro Masters, mind you, at the conclusion of this Monday championship, of course, we have a new series coming out for pre-Q. I believe it's called the Asian Masters Championship, and that will be only the Nissan, the Honda, and the Lexus. So we had the Euro Masters this season on Monday. Next season is going to be Asian cars only, and that's the Nissan, the Honda, and the Lexus. It's going to be quite interesting. Pre-Q will be up after the next Monday race is over, I'm told. So sign up for that on the website, racerci.com. Sign up for that. And of course, Ryan and John will be with you on Monday. Wednesday, the Diamond Drive Cup, race number 3 with Nate and myself and Jake Boswell on the cameras. Thursday, the continuation of GT4 with myself, Tim Peck. And we'll be right back with you on Friday for the continuation of this championship. I'm being told that John won't be back with Ryan Gill. That would be Ryan Mawson. Actually, they don't know. I've just been informed they don't know. Somebody will be with Ryan Gill in the box on Monday for that championship. Anyway, it is now time to thank all of our partners that make this race and every race possible. I sound like PBS all of a sudden. I don't know what's going on. Thanks to everybody that makes this race and every race possible. All of our lovely partners, racedepartment.com, your source of sim racing news and information, AK Informatica for providing our server solutions, Driver61 and Driver61.com. You can get 25% off your driver coaching by going to Driver61.com and using our discount code in the description of this video. Driver coaching can make you a better and faster driver. It's worked out for many of our staff here at RCI. Fanatec, your source of quality sim racing peripherals and hardware, and simracing.gp. If you're tired of the pub racing scene, join simracing.gp, join a community to sign up completely free. Get started today. Ryan Mawson, final thoughts on today's race.
Final thoughts. That's probably got to be one of the best Zolder races that I have seen in a long old time. And who would have called it that, you know, George Boothby in the McLaren would have beaten the likes of Tinko in the Mercedes? I wouldn't have ever said that a mid-engine car could have not only raced so competitively, but could have won here. So I'm just watching this Friday champ with bated breath to see what Boothby's got on a track where that car is incredibly strong.
Yeah, it's going to be a fight to the finish. Just because Boothby won today doesn't mean that Tinko or Savalainen, for that matter, let's not forget Savalainen. Those are your top 3 in the championship. They're going to be, after the points are tabulated for this race, they all have a mathematical shot with 2 rounds left to go. Anything is possible. We saw Malinowski flame out today. Could it happen to one of our top 3? Absolutely. We will see you next week for the continuation of the GT Sprint Challenge. Don't forget the World Tour Championship starts tomorrow with the 10-hour of Nürburgring. And if you don't like me or Mike Jones, sorry for you. But we will be live with that right after practice ends. Qualifying already occurred, so we'll jump right into the race. On behalf of everybody here at RCI, I just want to say thank you for watching. We appreciate it and hope you have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And we'll see you next time. Have a good night.